Ahoy ahoy to all you smooth sailors out there, and welcome aboard the DeckTales Podcast. I'm your host and captain, Sammy Catlin, and this is the show where we set sail into the captivating world of ship life. Most of the time, delving into the best and worst experiences of the incredible crew members who called the open sea their workplace, but I'm open to the odd exception as well. Whether we're navigating stunning destinations to weathering unexpected storms, our guests all have stories to tell that will make you laugh, gasp, and maybe even shed an unexpected tear. So if you're a seasoned cruiser eagerly awaiting your next embarkation, or just curious as to what goes on at sea, DeckTales is your boarding pass to a world of nautical narratives. My guest today is Mr. Ben Clift, a former light entertainment manager, which essentially means he was the guy who wrote and produced the onboard quizzes, game shows and deck parties. Basically anything relating to entertainment he was responsible for, and he was doing that for about 3 years on land before going to work on board river cruises for roughly 6 to 7 years. We reconnected through Facebook and it was great catching up with him, hearing his stories from over the years and learning that he now works as a client delivery manager for Tag Entertainment. So let's anchor up and dive right in. Ben!
Hey. Sam, how are you?
How are you, sir?
I'm all right, buddy. A little bit older. I'd like to say a little bit wiser, but not at all, to be honest with you.
There's no need for that. No, just Peter Pan syndrome, isn't it?
I don't know about that. Peter something or another.
My God, Ben, I've literally just been Facebook stalking you in like a mad rush to kind of go, I need to kind of like re-jog my memory as to how we have connected over Facebook. But I've just seen an album in your photos entitled Light Entertainment Workshop or Training.
Yes, yeah,
from
from many years ago.
Peel Light Entertainment Training Course from 2008. And in these pictures, you've got Gavin, Josh, Laura. I shouldn't be saying names and just like name dropping people because that's bad etiquette. But essentially, half these people I worked with on one contract.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I worked with them on the other half, and they never worked again once they trained after me. So,
Well,
yeah, that was a long time ago, 2008. Yeah.
Everyone's gone on to do more things now.
Everybody has gone on to have a successful career apart from me. So that's...
Wow. We'll get onto that at some point, Ben. So what was it you were doing? Let's go back. With Peel, which is an entertainment company, they recruit entertainers for Thompson Cruise Lines.
Yeah, that's right. They did, yeah, for the TUI ships. But
TUI ships.
So I was the light entertainment manager, very grand title. So basically had the responsibility of producing and looking after everything that sat outside the theatre, essentially. So your second lounge entertainment, your deck parties, daytime stuff, kids clubs. I think at one point fell under me, although I swiftly moved them on to somebody who knew what they were talking about. But they were great days. Yeah, I think 2006, 2007, I started with Peel. Absolutely loved it and worked with all those great people. All of them, yeah, all these people that come in your life and kind of, it's unique, isn't it? Because they end up staying in your life in some capacity, one way or the other.
Yeah.
And some of them stay for a long time and still continue to work in the industry, and others go off and, essentially, I guess, get what they call a real job eventually.
Oh, don't start me on that. But so you did how many years essentially? So hang on, let's just backtrack. You weren't actually working on the ship. You were training people to go on the ship.
No, that's right. Yeah, I when I first started my career, it's a long story, and I don't want to bore you too much with it. But back in the days when air tours had ships, I got a job working for Open Wide International, actually, and I got a job working on board their ships as a believe it or not, as a children's entertainer, whatever that meant. Well, basically, I phoned them. I used to work in the summer holidays. I used to work from university in kids clubs. So I saw this advert to work with air tours as a children's entertainer on board a ship. And I phoned up the company, Open Wide, and I spoke to Kate, who's now the wife of a dear friend of mine. And I said, look, I've seen this advert. I'm really interested in coming along. I just need to let you know, I'm not a clown. That's not the kind of entertainment I provide. I run like kids. No, she said, that's great. It's what we're looking for. We're not looking for clowns or anything like that. So I roll up to the dance attic one boiling hot August day in Fulham, and I walk in. And what's the first thing I see? Fucking clown stood there. I thought, well, this is going to be an absolute disaster. Really like 60 years of age. Anyway, still stayed and did the interview, and lo and behold, got the job, and then was meant to go and work for Air Tours, but at the time they had a policy whereby they were employing Canadians, Swedish, and British, and you had to wait for essentially your counterpart in that nationality to leave. So I was waiting for a British male to leave the ship before I could go on. And subsequently, it took too long. And then I ended up working for Open Wide overseas in hotels. Anyway, cut a long story short, years later, I come back and there I am. Yeah, I got a job with Pill. So installing and writing entertainment for the ships, basically. So I wasn't working directly on them, but I was spending, at that point in my career, I was spending a lot of time on setups and site visits and all that kind of stuff.
So grand total, how long did you spend on board ships?
Well, that depends what you're talking about. If you're talking about ocean ships, you mean my longest period on time or over the year? 3 years. Three years. And then on and off since then. But if you're talking about river ships, 6 or 7 years.
It's still a ship, isn't it?
Well, yeah, absolutely, yeah. So
just because it's not going international, or it's more local wherever you're kind of going to.
Well, no, you're international. You're just not on the sea. So my route was basically from Amsterdam to Budapest, same as Mr. Guy's route. Me and Steve did the same route.
Can we say about Steve? Do you think he'll be pissed off if we? No,
Steve's done brilliantly for himself. He's forged an amazing career with Viking.
I saw him.
Really happy.
What was that?
Yeah.
There was a thing on TV I saw him on. It was like an X Factor type show.
Yeah, Showboaters or something like that. I think
that was it.
Yeah, that was through Pill. Steve was the cruise director there, and then
Steve, he was like the equivalent of Simon Cowell.
I don't know. I didn't actually watch much of it, to be honest with you. But I thought it was a very interesting concept until you got to the prize, which was a contract on board a cruise ship, working in the show team. So X Factor, £1 million and travel the world in style. Showboaters contract, which you could have got if you'd have turned up to any dance hall and done an audition at any time. But
didn't go for a second season, did it?
I don't think it even finished the first, did it? If I'm honest with you, I don't know. But that was on the Sun Dream, I think, on Thompson Sun Dream.
I just remember it was on Sky Atlantic, and I saw a trailer for it, and I was like, because there was a couple people from the Peel head office.
That's right. Yeah.
One of the dance captain or dance choreographers was part of the team, obviously. But so you did 3 years on ships solidly, more or less, and then bit parts here and there in the capacity of entertainment host, kids host.
No. This was always management. This was always
management. Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you never had to. If you're managing the entertainers, did you not have to do any actual entertaining?
No. I was training them. So I was training them and setting them and choreographing them like the person that I was. I mean, when I was on the river ship, that was different. And I was public facing and with the guests all the time. But with Peel and with the TUI shops, I was in the background.
Yeah, it's a weird concept to be a backseat entertainer, but making sure that they're doing the entertainment properly.
Well, it's great, isn't it? Because all the faults that you've got, you can just tell them not to do it and hope they don't do it. So it's easier in some respects,
Absolutely.
Just to direct them.
You're like a fun moderator.
Something like that, yeah. I'm not sure that's what they're describing at the time, but No.
Do you have a standout scariest moment, Ben?
Standout scariest moment? Yeah, probably. I mean, I wasn't really used to the sea, to be honest with you, before I went on. I hadn't spent a lot of time on the ocean. I mean, I'd crossed from Portsmouth to the Isle of Wight as a child with my mum and dad on the Red Funnel, or was that from Southampton, one of the two. And then I joined Pill, and the first setup we did, we relocated the ship from Marseille to Tenerife, and we happened to cross in a Force 11.
Oh,
and that was quite eye-opening at the time. I think I was on there with Gavin.
But for reference, an 11 is one off of the top. 12 is the top.
Yeah, absolutely.
On the Gale Force spectrum.
Yeah, so we were right at the top. I mean, it was horrific. I mean, normally when you do this, when you're repositioning and the guests are coming on, I think we left Marseille, and let's just say it was a 3-day sail, might have been 4 days. I think, normally the ship is a hive and a busy place because everyone's getting ready, plastic's being pulled up from the time when they've been doing decorating, all that kind of stuff. Restaurants are getting prepared and all that. And we left on, let's just say, the Monday afternoon from Marseille. And by 12 o'clock the next day, the ship was there was nobody around. I mean, it was absolutely dead. The swell was incredible. And I took to my bed, and I've never ever heard noises like it in my life.
What, from all around
Obviously,
you?
yeah, from like the ocean just banging relentlessly on the side of the ship. It sounded like we'd been struck by like a torpedo at all given times. I think I went down to my cabin about 2. I think I managed to. I don't think I got up that night. Came up the next morning, it was still the same. Went to the bridge with Gavin, where the captain was literally just stood like that, looking out. I mean, like some salty old sea dog. Wipers going mad at the front, which is unusual to see on a cruise ship.
Yeah.
And just like we were going so slowly. And I remember Gav saying, because we were worried we were going to be late. You know, I think we were meant to arrive in Tenerife maybe on a Friday morning. Turnaround day was a Friday, actually, thinking about it. And it looked like at that point we wouldn't get there until maybe late afternoon, early evening, which is a disaster operationally and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, Gab was there with this Greek captain and just like said, "Captain, you know, can't we go a bit faster?" And he just turned to Gavin and said, "You want to be smashed to a million pieces?" And I was like, at this point, I was like, all right, well, if the captain's saying that, then potentially this isn't such a good situation. And then I did retire to my bed, and I think maybe the night before we arrived, it calmed down, and then we did arrive. I think we were due to arrive at 7 in the morning. I think we pulled in about 11 in the end, so just 4 hours delayed. So it wasn't so bad, but it was frightening. It was totally frightening because you realise then there's nowhere to go.
What ship did you say this was? Or did you not?
This was a Destiny.
Oh, it was the Destiny. Yeah,
it was.
Okay, so I know the size of that ship, but for the people that don't, it's about, I want to say 45,000 tons more.
Now you're talking a language. I just know passenger size. It was about 1,100, 1,200, wasn't it? No, more than that. Maybe 1,600 guests.
Maybe 1,600. I mean, I just pulled that number out of nowhere, and I'm basing it on the ship that I went on after the Destiny, which was 500 passengers and 14,000 tons. So I just tripled it in my head. Quick maths.
Yeah,
sort of.
You might be about right. But anyway, I think the thing is, like nowadays, modern liners are huge. They're much bigger than they were then. I mean, obviously,
but the Destiny was the biggest in the world at one point, wasn't it?
I don't think it was definitely the biggest in the TUI fleet. I don't think it's the biggest in the world, was it? I don't think that can be possibly correct.
No, it's been scrapped. It's been scrapped now. It's no longer.
Yeah, well, I know. I mean, it needed scrapping a long time ago, to be honest with you. Great, but again, an American ship, so great passenger spaces, really big open lounges and stuff like that. Superb. Terrible cabins.
Well,
I remember.
It was my first ever ship, so I didn't have anything to compare it to, and so for that reason, I always had fond memories of it. Not just for the first time of everything, but because of the crew. I think the crew were one of the best crews I've ever worked with on that contract. With Josh and Dave and Drew and Jenny, we were like family for was it 4 or 5 months we worked together? It was awesome.
Yeah.
One of the best ones. But let's go back to the questions. So that was a Gale Force 11. Yeah. It's like almost like the breath of God, basically.
Yeah. Or Satan, whichever way you want to look at it.
With regards to scariest moment, you've chosen to go with a bad weather story, but you didn't really have to deal with, I'm guessing, the guests on many occasions. So
I dealt with. I mean, on Viking, yeah. I mean, I dealt with the guests all the time. I mean, and that was, but in terms of life or death situation, I guess that's probably the biggest one.
Well, yeah, I guess so. But like scary with the guests, was there any like particularly like, I don't know, difficult encounters?
Oh, they were. Yeah, I mean, difficult encounters. I remember my first cruise for Viking. The river is a very different beast to the sea. As soon as you set sail on the sea, there's nothing apart from the weather with the gale force. You can't really. There's nothing to stop you progressing on your journey. You're going to get to your destination. Whereas on the river, it's completely different. You have a multitude of different things that can basically stop you continuing your journey, such as low water, high water, lock strikes, ships that have run aground, all that kind of stuff will shut the river down in an instant. And then you're just at the mercy of either Mother Nature to get it to the place where it needs to be, or the local authorities to move, or a lock to open again, or whatever like that. And my first cruise with Viking, and it's a very difficult job working on the river as a program director. It's terrifying, absolutely terrifying. And my first cruise with Viking, I took the ship from Budapest to Nuremberg, and that was okay. And then coming back, you know what it's like. I don't know if you ever felt it when you did embarkation. You just get a sense for passengers as they're coming up the gangway as to how this cruise is going to go.
Right, yeah.
And the sense that I had standing in Nuremberg, knowing that the water levels were particularly low and that we would potentially have to swap ships. And essentially, what you do is you have your ship's going one way and you have a sister ship which is sailing the other way. So you both reach a point where you can't go any further, and then you take your guests from your ship on a bus to that ship, and they do vice versa, and then they turn around and they head back. So your operation continues, but your guest that's coming for a week, who thinks they're on board your ship for a week, packs up all their stuff and then basically has to load it on a coach. We drive there, then they have to unpack. So you can imagine they're not particularly pleased about this experience, despite the fact that I have to say that Viking made it as smooth as they possibly could.
Yeah, but is that regular? Is that a regular practice?
That's a regular practice on the river. 100%, yeah. In fact, summer 2000 or season 2018, whatever it was, I don't think I did a cruise where that didn't happen in the entire cruise from the start of the season till the end. So, it gives you an understanding of Mother Nature and the changes that are happening in the rivers. Anyway, so lo and behold, we go on the first night. I do my welcome on board briefing, which was only the second one I'd ever done. I'd only done it the first week, but it was okay. You got away with it and stuff, a little bit cheeky and all that kind of stuff, British humour with the Americans. And then sitting in the lounge, not gone down to dinner, was this huge bloke with one leg and his wife. And I walked over to say, "Hey guys, how are you? You all right? You okay? You're welcome on board." And the first thing he said to me is, "Are you British?" So I said, "Yes, I am British." And he was South African. He went, "I fucking hate the Brits," like that. So I think I made a smarmy comment like, "Oh, this is going to be a lovely week, isn't it?" Or something like that. His wife then said, "Oh, don't worry about him. He's fine." Anyway, he got more and more pent up as the week went on. And then we cut a long, boring story short. We did our ship swap and it went really well and the guests were really happy. And then just arriving to our ship, we were meant to be finishing in Budapest. I got a call from the corporates to say, "You can't get to Budapest. You're going to have to stop like 2 hours out." So I was like, bloody hell, they're going to kill me. So I went on board and I spoke to the hotel manager. I was like, "Can you deliver the news? And he was like, yeah, I'll deliver the news. No problem." Anyway, when push came to shove, he went, "I'm not doing it." So I just grabbed the mic and said, "Oh, sod this, I'll do it." So I did it. And the South African man was at the bar, and he started walking towards me, and he was going, "I'm going to fucking knock your head off," like that. And it was only two other guests that stood in front and said, "Calm down, don't be ridiculous," like that. But I'm pretty sure if he'd have got to me, he would have knocked me out 100%.
Did he find out what the reason was behind his hatred for British people?
Well, I mean, it's probably got to do with the colonization of South Africa, I would imagine, and all that jazz. Stuff in history that we're still blamed for. That we have no control over.
We're on a lot of people's hit lists. It's a tough time.
Yeah, well, absolutely, definitely. We're on our own at the moment. I don't know if you've seen the riots.
Oh, it is awful. I've got a Union Jack. What do you call it? Like a Velcro sticker on the back of my backpack, and right now I'm ashamed to have it because it's awful. People have repurposed the Union Jack to basically be like, we're fighting in the name of patriotism, and it's just disgusting, Ben. It is awful.
It's terrible, isn't it?
People are getting in touch with like my girlfriend's Indian, and they're asking her to be safe and do all these things because they've seen it on the international news. But we it's been 6 days for the Americans who listen to this of rioting and targeted attacks on hotels where there's refugees staying, places of worship like mosques, and it's absolutely disgusting. So this will be out in a few weeks after, obviously, hopefully these incidents have subsided and the people who've been committing these atrocities have been dealt with, and those who were involved will know not to do it again, because I can't condone it. And the person who he's let's call him Robbie Tomlinson. Yeah, he's nowhere to be seen. Apparently, he's abroad somewhere, and he's
in Cyprus. He's in Cyprus, living the life, isn't he?
Yeah. What a hypocrite. Anyway, let's not go on down that route because that'll just get upsetting, and that's not the tone or the subject matter we're dealing with. But with this South African guest, he was obviously clinging on to the past. Did you find that there was a difference in the types of clientele on board like river cruises to like cruises?
Yeah, I mean, I started river cruising in Yeah, definitely. If I look back, actually thinking about it, and I look at my time with TUI and working with that, it almost felt like a natural step. People are very loyal customer base with Thomson and TUI and all that kind of stuff. Know they're going to be well looked after. Know that they're going to be safe. They're going to be picked up from the airport. They're not going to have to worry about anything like that. Done a few years holidaying with it, and now they want to feel like, oh, the next step up. Let's go on a cruise. That's what they want to do. They want to tell their friends. Of course, back in you're talking like 2006 and stuff like that. Cruising was just starting its booming, really. Then it wasn't the norm like it is now. Now there seems to be a plethora of options on the market for cruising, multiple liners. Back then it wasn't the same, So and I do think there was that feeling of your TUI guests going, oh, look at us, we can just upgrade a little bit and we can go on a cruise. And I think the difference between the river cruising is I work predominantly with a lot of Americans. The Viking was an American company. And I saw huge changes over the years that I were there. 2015, the guests were, how do we put it this way? We're more interested in exploring the world and more interested in the culture of the destinations that we were arriving into. And then Viking expanded rapidly and now has, I don't know how many ships they have, but they went from having a fleet of maybe 14 or 15. This was when they way back in like the early 2000s and 11s, I would think, up to when I was there was about 40. And then by the time I finished, I think we had something like 80 river ships or something like that. Wow. So what that means is, of course, you need to fill them. You can't have these ships with, so you need to make attractive offers. And a lot of my colleagues highlighted that, Viking became the carnival of the rivers because, they had to get people on board these ships and they had to fill them because one, it looks good for numbers, and two, you need it for revenue. So I did notice a change, I think, in the years that I was there with the people coming. Not to say that they weren't nice anymore, but they wanted different things, Yeah. A bit more partying, a bit more. I can't be bothered to go out today to see the sights, even though they'd be in some small little German town that they were never going to visit ever again in their lives. It didn't seem as important to them as it did in 2015. But that could have just been my perception of it as I became weary of the same thing day in, day out.
Because river cruising is relatively new, isn't it? Like within the scheme of like how long shipping and cruising has been going, river cruising started when?
Well, I mean, if you look at the route that I did from Amsterdam to Budapest, it's only possible because of the Rhine-Main-Danube Canal, which is a man-made waterway, which was completed in 1992, if my memory serves me correctly. You'll have to forgive me because it's been a while since I've given lectures on these things. So basically what that meant was that you could sail continuously from Amsterdam, from the North Sea through down to the Black Sea, basically on a river. So after that, the boom became quite large because it meant that you opened up new routes and stuff like that. But still a relatively new market, I think, if I'm honest with you. TUI, who I did some work for on their river ships as well, they came into the market they went to come in the year of COVID and had to delay for a bit, but proving hugely popular with their guests again. So the demand is out there to see these sites because it's a unique way to travel, very, very different to the ocean.
And how many guests do they average on board?
So with Viking, we had 190, and with TUI, it was slightly less. I think it was 158 on board or 160, something like that.
So the facilities are nowhere near as surplus or you've got nowhere near as many things or options to do as what you'd have on these mega ships. But when you've got 190 odd guests, what do they really need to stay happy?
Well, that's right. I mean, you've got your main restaurant. You'll likely have another restaurant as well. You'll have a lounge, obviously, for entertainment and that kind of stuff and for briefings. And then you've got the river, which is the star of the show. And then you have a deck and you sit out on the deck in the evening when the weather's pleasant with a glass of nice white wine and you watch the world go by, and it's all very, very nice indeed.
Have you got a water slide?
You don't have a water slide. No, I did say to them, listen, what we're really missing here is a water slide. But they said,
what about an ice rink or a bowling alley or something?
No, you might be able to play carpet bowls as an activity once, like that, but not a bowling rink or ice rink.
High octane carpet bowls.
Yeah, absolutely. You need to make it competitive. But
that's one of those sports that's a bit of an oxymoron at sea, isn't it? People can't play if the ship's moving too much because it's just going to fuck with the game.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Sea day, that when you've got that, and you're trying to play carpet bowls and it's it's moving around a bit. It's a pointless exercise. But it never really ceased to amaze me that people would want to join in with these activities when they were on
Yeah,
holiday. It's always something that I've thought was mad.
yeah. No, when I used to host mini golf and it was a bit rough, I sort of said, "There's been a change in the schedule today, folks. I noticed that the weather's a bit choppy. So we're not actually playing mini golf today. We're playing crazy golf." So that was like,
It,
the opportunity to kind of play with them a little bit and say, well, no one take it too seriously because no one can control their putting.
yeah.
But with things like that, did you get anyone who was just like, "Oh, this is awful," complaining about the lack of professional entertainment because you couldn't control the weather, stupid questions or demands or requests, things like that?
Yeah, you always got people like that. People who said that, well, there's nothing to do on board and all this kind of stuff. You always got that. But then you'd be like, well, I would just play it the other way, mate. I'd just be like, well, I know you're an educated person, so I know you read the small print and you read all about the ship before you came on board. And that's what I would do in situations where we had high or low water in my welcome briefing. I would say, I know that you're all seasoned travelers and that you're all intrepid explorers. And so I know and I know you've read about the potential dangers that we have here on this week coming up with the low water. I'll keep you updated. I don't want you to worry about it, but all that jazz. Just psychologically playing with them to make them feel.
Massage the ego.
Absolutely, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah. So that would minimize the onslaught of ridiculous questions. That's really clever.
Well, I think the thing is, at the end of the day, I think, life experience has told me one thing: tell people how it's going to be.
Yeah.
Don't try and fluff it up. Don't try and sugarcoat it. If we're going to have a problem at the start of the cruise, let them know that. It's not to make them worried about it or anything, but it's to let them know that, essentially, potentially, we could have this problem. We're going to deal with it. We're going to get through it together. It's not really going to impact you. And we've done it a million times. So you might as well enjoy it. And you can't control what you can't control.
With things like you can't control it, but obviously we had to have lifeboat drills and things on a cruise ship at the start of every cruise. Was it a similar thing on the river cruises?
Yeah. Within 24 hours, we have to do a mandatory safety drill. Yeah.
Oh, okay. And is that the same now post-COVID, or is it changed slightly?
No, it's still the same. It's still the same.
Because I heard from somebody now on the bigger ships, they kind of go around with like a phone app and they have to go and stand in a
they scan their phone and stuff like that. No, not on board because again, the other thing about the river ship is it's not, you don't have the space, so you lack a little bit of technology in that respect. It's only recently that Viking have got a gangway system that scans people in and out. Previously to that, it was done with the old-fashioned way with a card that you picked up when you left and returned when you came back to the ship.
Oh. Well, and also with like it only being 190 guests, how many decks is that?
So deck 1, 2, it's only 3 decks, and it's 4 decks if you include the sun deck. So, but there's no cabins up there.
Is there any need for an elevator? I guess there is.
There is an elevator. Yeah, there is an elevator.
Yeah,
because when you get somebody, who weighs 300 tons trying to get on board the ship, rolling down the gangway in a wheelchair, you think, right, well, this is going to be fun.
Was there like a weight allowance? Some weeks when you had a lot of rotund guests, there'd be a bit more water displacement in the river.
That's why we couldn't get through. We needed to fill them. Yeah, exactly. No, bless them. But you're always going to get that in any walk of life. A lot of the guests, I have to say, they'd come along and they'd be like, "Oh, Ben, like we've been training for like 10 weeks for this, and we've been going out walking, so we get fit and stuff, So it's really nice. And I work with a lot of older guests as well, because there's a big difference between your 1 week itinerary and your 2 week, because in America they don't get a great deal of holiday. So your 1 weekers would be your younger crowds, maybe your mid-20s through to your early 50s who were still working but could only take a week off. But on mine, which was 2 weeks, it was a lot of people who had retired because they could afford the time then and the cost as well. So I work with a lot of old people. Older people. But
you had people that were like training to come on board?
Yeah, training, because it's a lot of work. It's a lot of exercise.
This is true.
You'd be walking, I'd say you'd be walking minimum 3 to 4 kilometers a day if you're going on tour.
Yeah, no, this is true. It just reminded me, because we had guests that would come on for Thompson's and they would have like a week booked in a hotel as well as a week on board. So they would have a cruise and stay or a stay and cruise. And the ones who did the cruise and stay had it the right way around, because after the cruise holiday, you want a holiday.
Yeah, exactly.
Just the lounge by the pool.
The other way around. The other way around doesn't work as well, does it?
No, absolutely not. Did you do any of the onboard training that you had to do before you boarded any of the cruise ships? Where you went to like what was it called? The training centres where you went and jumped off the edge of a pool. Did you do any of those things?
Well, no, I didn't. You didn't have to do that for the rivers. We did fire safety on board and all sorts of manner of safety stuff when we arrived at the ship. But actually, to be honest with you, that was the one thing that in my career that stopped me from progressing because I can't swim and I'm terrified. I'm terrified of it. So I had a few opportunities to go and join ships and to go and progress with my career and all that, but I can't do it. I just can't. I just physically cannot bring myself to do that. And when I first started back in the day, it wasn't mandatory. It wasn't a mandatory thing. It just had to be that so many members of your team had that. But now, of course, it's totally different.
So would you have been particularly useless in an emergency situation, Ben?
Oh, 100%. I'm useless in an emergency situation now. If I see someone in a restaurant choking, I run out the door. I'm like, no, thanks very much. It's never going to happen.
Yeah.
Whereas that's what I liked about the river. Wherever you were on the river, you were only about 4 meters from the edge of the bloody bank, so you were fine.
And you can't really bump into an iceberg in like a lock.
Well, you can't. That's true. You can smash the lock and stuff like that, of course. But yeah.
You said about lock strikes earlier. Is that when just the people that operate them go on strike and they don't?
Yeah, basically, yeah. Any given moment. Yeah, absolutely.
Can't you just nip off and open it yourself manually with like a crank handle or something?
Well, I don't know. We didn't think about that. That's maybe a good idea, but
just keep a spare one, like anything key or like an anything crank.
That's what we needed. But the majority of them were then originally, obviously, locks were operated by a lock master on each single one, but then they were automized. So basically, there would be, for want of a better thing, a lock tower or a lock control center that would be responsible for, I don't know, 7, 8, 9, 10 locks, however many it was, and people would sit in those, and then they would just cameras would be showing the ships and stuff like that, and then they would just do it automatically from there. So when they went on strike, that brought down everything on the river. I mean, nobody got past cargo ships, the lot. And the problem is then, of course, that you can go, well, that's fine, that's not a problem, it's going to be open tomorrow, we'll be all right. But if you arrive at a lock and you're the fifth ship, and then 5 other ships are on the other side, that's a waiting time once it opens again of probably could be anything up to 10 hours, depending on how long it takes to get through a lock. Yeah. So it was not the words you want to hear, lock strike, at all.
And before they were automated, the lockmaster would have basically taken a bunch of cattle, and they would have pulled whatever was coming through.
Well, years ago you wouldn't have had locks, would you? Which is why basically what happened was that when you would have got to a rapid. So essentially, what you're saying is exactly right. Like because there was no power, the horses would drag the ships upstream, and then when they got to there, the ships would have to be carried out and carried on land to another flat piece of water. And away they went. Downstream was a bit easier because they could sail on their own.
We're going back some years here.
Yeah, we're not talking like, we're going back right now to the whenever the Celts were and all that. But
this is what I like though. This is the history of the industry and how it's all kind of, we're in the AI era right now.
Yeah.
Pretty soon you won't need to go on a cruise because you can just
you won't.
You can just pretend like you're on one in VR.
100%, yeah. Some people will love that.
I'm sure there are those who already do. And that way you don't have to worry about getting seasick, or if there's an accident, you don't have to worry about getting wet and learning how to swim, Ben.
Exactly. So it's perfect for me.
Did you have any emergency situations?
On the river we had no, not really, no. My colleagues were involved in some of them and in some emergency situations, but I wasn't as such involved in them.
Well, it's a broad spectrum. Obviously, emergency situations can be bomb, can be like obviously said about the storm. It could have been an engine failure, or I don't know what else there is. Fire, obviously. But you never had anything.
No, I got very lucky.
What about
my colleagues? Deaths.
Yeah.
We had deaths, but they didn't die on the ship. We got them to hospital, and then we found out sadly that they passed away a few days later.
Right.
My colleague had deaths. Somebody died in his arms, which is not great, at the top of a castle. Yeah.
Oh, what was that, on an excursion?
Yeah, on an excursion. Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Well, so they went all the way up to the top of the spire or the top tower.
Well, no, it was a place called Marksburg Castle in Germany, and the walk up to the castle is quite taxing, and up and round and and all that kind of stuff. And obviously, you warn the guests. But the gentleman went and got to the top and then just literally clapped straight away, and that was it. Yeah. And the worst thing about it, worst thing about it was that his poor wife wasn't on the excursion. She was on another excursion. So you can imagine. Yeah.
So she went with a slightly easier trundle rather than going on a good old hike.
Yeah. So not good. Not good.
You said that you gave you've not given any lectures on this sort of topic in a while. But what sort of lectures did you used to give?
So the thing about a program director on board the river ship is that you're kind of like a master of master of everything, because you need to be an entertainer. You need to give the daily briefing on the port that you're visiting the next day. So you're selling not necessarily excursions, but you're selling the excitement of where we're going to visit tomorrow. Because when your guests go to dinner, you want them absolutely buzzing for that next morning and for that next day, because it's all part of their experience.
That kind of lecture.
Yeah, and then also lectures about the Rhine-Main-Danube Canal, Mozart, Dutch history, Dutch art. What else do we do? Coffee houses, that kind of stuff. So, that's all the kind of stuff that you're sort of giving and delivering.
This is all at sea or on the river. This isn't you in a university in a tweed jacket.
No, not at all. This is me with all my notes on a lectern, then with a PowerPoint presentation. Yeah, so it was good. It's actually, do you know what? To be honest with you, like when you get the job and you're like, oh, fucking hell, I'm going to do that. I'm never going to be able to do that. But it's really interesting. And the stuff that I learned over the years and stuff was fascinating. And in the end, I actually really ended up enjoying delivering them, because it showed you and painted you in a different light to what they thought you were. They thought you were a jovial chap or chapess, and that you had great knowledge of these cities that you're going to. You could host a quiz and run stuff in the evening. But then when you went and give them a lecture all about, like I say, the history of the Rhine-Main-Danube Canal for 45 minutes, it's like they're like, oh, hold on a second, that's really good,
Yeah, because you used to, if I'm correct, used to write the quizzes, a lot of them.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I wrote all the entertainment. Yeah.
So we had the laminated cards, obviously, with all the different names of the game shows and the quizzes. Can you remember what the names of the quizzes were called? Think Tank,
yeah. Strain the Brain. And then we had the game shows. Yeah.
What game shows did we have? What stood out for you? Any of them in particular?
I think probably the best one, if you got it right, was probably Alternative Question of Sport. I always remember that being pretty good.
I liked Secrets and Lies. That was a highlight for me.
Yeah, Secrets and Lies.
I filled in for Gavin Carroll one time, and I basically got his cards. So I had all of his stories and his punchlines, but because it's Gavin telling them, it didn't work for me. So I reworded them. I reworded them to be like, like, how could this possibly be true? I'm a young 19-year-old, fresh, wet behind the ears kid, basically. And yet I've got all this life experience that I couldn't possibly have. So I just played on that. It was absolutely nonsense. I think Steve and Kane, who were in the show with me, they said afterwards, like, it was the best it's ever been. And then I let the compliment go to my head, and I was doing shots in the bar with the Barricade boys, the guest acts.
Oh, yeah.
the guest acts on that week. And then I got pulled aside by Steve to sort of like, don't get carried away, Sam.
What's good advice from Steve, though?
You've had one good show. Don't let it go to your fucking head.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Jonathan, the Barricade, Jonathan and Craig.
Yeah. I wanted to get them on. But so with the quizzes, because you researched them, not necessarily delivered them, because we would get people sometimes during the quiz who were like, that's not right. And they would, they would try to kind of be like, no, this is the answer. And all I had to sort of really rely on is that I've got the card in my hand. I'm the quiz master. Shut up.
Yeah.
Don't ruin the fun. You know it all. Like, where's your proof? Because obviously we're at sea. No one really, back then at least, had a very reliable internet signal.
No. Well, they were probably right. The answer probably was wrong, to be honest with you.
Oh, right. You don't stand by your product.
Well, I do, but I think I learned pretty quickly that, you've got to bloody well verify your sources from three places. If you're going to get your questions off the internet, that's your thing. You're going to have to find three sources that give you the same answer, unless of course you know the answer. Because I was rather partial in every other quiz to having a question about Southampton Football Club, and I knew all the answers to that. Matt Letizia made it in a number of times. I remember that. The Dell, St Mary's, anything like that would always appear in some of the quizzes.
Is that where you're from? Southampton?
No, I'm from London, but that's just my team.
Oh, okay. Really? You're from London, but your team is Southampton.
Yeah, because they're the greatest football team in the world. So what can you do when that bug hits you?
Well, where are they at the moment in the Championship?
No, they're in the Premier League. We got promoted.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, okay. Well, we're like 2 weeks away from the next season starting, and
Yeah,
we've got Southampton back, we've got Leicester back, and we've got Ipswich in for the first time in
in a long time.
in a long time. And just for for clout, by the way, my niece, who's just turned 12, she was in the academy for Ipswich, and she just got signed to Spurs
Wow, very good, very impressive.
as a goalkeeper. So well done, Maisie. Well, Uncle Sam's very proud of you. But because I'm
Thank
an
you.
Arsenal,
And can I just thank you as well for your hand gesture, just so I knew what a goalkeeper was there. By the way, I thought that was very good.
Well, I do these things for the guests on board the cruise ship as well because it's all about animation. But just it was a good thing that she signed for Spurs because that's easier in my pocket. Because as an Arsenal fan, it now means I have to buy 2 less presents a year for Christmas and birthdays.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Until she signs for a proper club.
Well, good luck to her anyway.
Absolutely. Did you meet any celebs at sea?
Did I meet any celebs at sea? I met Darren and Lilia from Strictly Come Dancing. They're celebs because they came on and did some stuff with Tui, so I met them.
Were they contestants?
No, it was a competition that Thompson were running all the time. Darren and Lilia's like Strictly Come Dancing thing. So there was a series of onboard competitions for guests who wanted to join in, and then if they won at the end of the week, they then made it through to the grand final, and Darren and Lilia were there hosting it and giving masterclasses and stuff.
Oh, Darren and Lily are hosts from the TV.
Oh, they were dancers on Strictly Come Dancing. Yeah,
right. That just shows my ignorance stuff. I've only ever watched.
Oh God, no, you wouldn't know them. When we're talking years ago. So yeah, I mean, they were big at the time and stuff, and then they went on when they stopped being dancers. They went on to be they actually choreographed the dancers dancing. Then, if that makes sense, so they went behind the scenes and did the choreography.
Yeah, I think the only time I've ever really watched it is if I was visiting my nan and she couldn't not watch it.
Yeah.
But the only dancer I can name, I think, is the South African lady, Oti Mabusi.
Oh, right. Okay, yeah. I think she's a judge now, isn't she? I don't know.
Quite possibly, but I haven't watched it. Did you do any charter cruises, Ben?
Again, very boring. I didn't do them. No. We had charter cruises on the rivers, but I never did them. But my colleagues loved them because they were worth a fortune.
What do you mean worth a fortune?
So the way that they used to work on the river when I first started was that you'd get a basic salary and then you'd live off tips.
Oh, okay, right.
And then if we did a charter cruise, though, they had to prepay the tips. So they always got the maximum that they could get. Plus, then people would also leave more and more. And as well, the other good thing about it was they generally used to bring their own tour director with them who'd organise everything. So you just sort of be in the background helping them out if they needed something.
That's weird tipping policy to prepay them, though.
Well, they did it because that was just the way that it was. It was just part of what they did.
Right. But so that ensured things ran smoothly or not so much?
Yeah, I think so. Pretty much so, yeah. My colleagues used to love it. So, but like I say, it never happened to me. So
what other with charter cruises that your other colleagues worked with, was there like specific communities or different groups that would come on and book a cruise, or?
I don't recall. It might be people who come on from a church or something like that. Some of them could have been travel agents looking at the routes. So had a week to sort of come on board and then obviously look at the whole operation and stuff and then sell that package to their guests. And they come on board, and that's why they needed to pay their pre-tips beforehand, because they wouldn't leave anything otherwise for the crew, because it was a working holiday, essentially.
I can't imagine there was ever a Lockmasters cruise.
No, there was never a Lockmasters cruise. No, they were never invited on board.
They wouldn't get.
And there would be
far.
no one to run the locks either. So that way we'd be stuffed. We'd get to the first one, and that'd be it. It'd be over.
That was working.
Yeah, exactly.
Was there any like standout excursions that you did for the right or wrong reasons over the years?
Oh, I mean, I think there's like brilliant excursions on the river. I mean, really great excursions to little towns and stuff. Mozart concert in Vienna was always a highlight for the guests. They used to love that.
That sounds good.
So they'd go out in the evening and then watch an evening of classical music, but it was like the greatest hits of classical music. So they didn't have to sit through anything they didn't know. It was all great stuff performed by a really talented orchestra. That was always good.
The greatest hits.
Yeah, and anything that involved wine was always nice, like to the winery, wine tasting.
Oh, yeah. They're
to
very
be
common. It's a
yeah,
staple of excursions is like, where's the nearest vineyard?
absolutely. Yeah, we used to go to this bloke called Morvold's winery in a place called Krems, and he was brilliant. He looked like something from the Lord of the Rings. He looked like who's the person that's like precious with his ring.
Gollum.
Gollum, is it? Gollum. He looked like Gollum. And he
I'm a
used to get
big Lord of the Rings fan over here. So when you said Lord of the Rings, my mind just went, it could be anyone.
yeah. So he looked like Gollum. And he used to turn up and he used to claim to not speak any English, but then he used to drink wine. And by the end of it, he was practically fluent in it. So he played the game really well. And he sold fortunes. I mean, bloody hell, he sold fortunes of wine. He was making a fortune, yeah.
But he looked like Gollum. Quite tragic.
He looked like Gollum. Yeah, he did, yeah. Bless him. But I liked him a lot. He was a nice bloke.
Was that a regular tour that you did then?
So that would only be once a month because we didn't stop at Krems coming down from Amsterdam. We only stopped going back up.
Right.
So yeah, we'd stop there once a month.
Probably best to limit yourself to once a month going to visit a vineyard, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. But I never really recall a time when the wine glass wasn't topped up when I was on board the ship anyway.
That's the difficulty, isn't it? With working on ships, it's always flowing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think the thing is as well, I mean, like, you would have a very stressful day. Day would begin at 6 a.m. when you're in the office, obviously making sure on the progress of the ship, getting ready and all that kind of stuff. Then you'd be on tour all day with your guests. And sometimes you could be doing 4 or 5 tours in a day, or you would go out for a tour, get them back on board, sail down for an hour or two, get off again, another tour, come back, briefing, maybe a lecture, whatever it's going to be. You'd be in the lounge at 7 o'clock or 6:45. That's when you did your briefing, and it'd be packed, rammed. Everyone was in there, wanted to find out what was happening the next day. And then boom, it was only one sitting for dinner. So like a sea parting, everybody left. And then there would just be this calm that would be washing over the lounge. Your hotel manager would be there, and you'd look to the bar, and the barman would have poured you a lovely glass of wine, and then it would be dinner. Couple of hours where you knew no guest was going to come. And they were really special moments, actually, to be honest with you, because you could, once you had that moment of like, this is actually a little bit like real life with your colleague talking about stuff that wasn't work related, sitting out on the veranda watching the world go by. It was really nice. And then you can just recharge those batteries for whatever was coming up, or a bit of paperwork and then bed, because it was exhausting work.
Yeah, no, 7 days a week. You just explained it in a very, very succinct manner, Ben. You're a whirling dervish of just kind of constant activity. And then when it's like time for lights out, or, that drink at the end of the day when you wind down. I remember when we were doing the embarkation in Tenerife, I used to really enjoy that. When I was with a couple of regular colleagues on that specific duty, there was a short window of opportunity where the last guests had arrived and they jumped on board, and it was about a couple of hours before we'd be doing our sail away deck party. So we would run, get changed, and then we'd run and we would go and sit somewhere just up, the road in a nice little bar or cafe and have a drink, because it was the end of one cruise just between like the start of the next. So we're like, let's take a moment.
Yeah, absolutely. Just you need those moments, mate. You have to have those moments where you feel alive, because otherwise you don't. And I think I think it's better now, but I honestly do genuinely believe that back in the day it was almost like, not so much for our departments, but for other departments. It was like modern day slavery. It really was. And I know that the people, our friends from the Philippines or wherever they might be, were earning a fortune comparable to what they were earning back home.
That's the argument.
That is the argument, but that doesn't mean to say it's right, does it? No. At the end of the day. And they sacrificed so much for their families, and even our Filipino crew on board the Viking ships. And it's quite a big study done into it, well, in the period of time that I worked there, by the Dutch government. Right. And they changed the laws. They actually changed the laws for the better, so that every crew member had to have 2 days off a month, which was unheard of at the time.
Well, that's implemented across the industry, or just the river cruises?
Definitely in the rivers. I don't know about the ocean, but definitely on the rivers.
Fascinating. Yeah. Well, I mean, for the benefit of those listening, a lot of big cruise ship corporations, they register them, the ships, individually most of the time in places like Panama. And the reason they do that is because they can get around certain labor laws, which is, pretty disgusting. It's just a loophole that they found, and they're exploiting it. But as Ben has already said, comparatively to what they could be earning back home in the Philippines, they're earning less than what, for example, we might be earning. But then what I was earning wasn't very much for London living prices.
No, of course, yeah.
What they would earn, they could save they would send it back to their families, and if they saved enough, they could buy land.
Yeah,
That's
that's exactly right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. So, you know, on the ships, my friends would be there and they'd just have a newborn baby and stuff. And then sometimes you'd find husband and wife coming to work together and baby would be back with mum and dad, because they knew that if they did the 9 months on the Viking ship, they could, first of all, between them, save up so much money that they could buy houses, land, whatever they wanted to do. And then they could have the whole of the winter off. So they sacrificed working to be able to get back to their families in, say, November, and be there right through until March next year, 4 months, you know, that they would spend quality time and not have to worry. So there are always, in any walk of life, you have to make your sacrifices. You make your sacrifices every day and stuff that we do. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I do think that the industry has improved for the better, without a doubt, when it comes to that kind of thing.
That's good. I've just thought of a new question that I'm going to start asking people, because it's like a couple of people I've met who've had this sort of thing going on. But like, did you have any side hustles? You probably didn't have any time, did you?
No, side hustles, they happened out in resort when I was working, when I was a much younger man, you know, burning CDs and selling them at mini discos and stuff like that. You know, that making money from the bingo, that will happen back in the hotels, making fortunes from
making money off
bingo.
The bingo. What, creaming
for sure.
Creaming a bit off the top.
Oh, not a bit, loads. I mean, it wasn't regulated back there, you know, like you'd be there with your mate and you'd be like, right, you know, we didn't do any opening or closing numbers, so the guests didn't know. The hotel weren't interested in taking any money themselves.
Yeah.
So we just used to do it. And then, so, you know, you'd get it in and you'd be there and you'd be like, well, there's 400 euros here in the kitty. What we doing? And we'd be like, well, there's 40 for you. There's 40 for me. And that's still if you're still doing a top price of like 210 euros, people are still like, well, fair enough. I want to win that.
Yeah.
You know, they're not asking any questions about how you make it. So that was stuff like that, but not on the ships. No, not at all.
No, full disclosure, I did do a similar thing, but not on the ships. Yeah. I was working between two ship contracts. I think with the contract I did with Drew and Scott, Dave, Jenny, and Josh, I went and did, I think it was Drew that suggested it to me, go and do a hotel contract. And he said, get some, because I was getting a bit frustrated that I wasn't getting enough time on the microphone.
Yeah.
I was kind of like down the pecking order. So I took Drew's advice and I went and I did a contract it was supposed to be 7 months in a hotel in Limassol in Cyprus. And it ended up being the same year that there was the swine flu epidemic.
Right.
So 2009. And I was one of the only people that wasn't getting sick. So I kept getting moved hotels to cover for people. And I ended up doing like 5 hotels in 7 months for 2 different companies in 2 different countries, Rhodos and Limassol, Cyprus, and a few other places. But when I was in the Atlantica Oasis in Cyprus, it was all just people paying cash for like their bingo tickets. And some of them found their way into my pocket, like a few.
Listen, they would have expected nothing less. You know, they were all, you know, at the end of the day, they would have expected nothing less. But I mean, that's when you're back and you're doing a young man stuff, you know, and everyone was doing it, you know. I mean,
even though I was working like, there was a 6-day-a-week job on the hotels. You needed that day off because we were the kids host, the entertainment host, we were the show team, we were the bingos and everything else. So and I really worked my ass off, Ben. And you know what's funny? I think I actually came back from the contract working on the hotels, and then I had to reapply to work for Thompson's again. And I think that's when I met you, which is when I did the training course, and then I didn't get a rebooking.
What can I say, bud? At the end of the day, standards were high.
So I went and I did what I was supposed to do, got some more mic time under my belt, and then I wasn't good enough after I did that. I think I was probably too burnt out from the Cypriot sun.
It's possible, buddy.
That's my excuse, and I'm sticking to it. Least favorite ship, crew, passenger, destination? There's a multitude of different answers you can give there.
Favorite ship was definitely the Viking Skadi when I worked with Viking. It was my favorite ship. Great people. I was back on there 3 years in a row, I think, and I loved them all. They were superb. Loads of guests that I couldn't stand. Wouldn't piss on them if they were on fire. I mean, really, just just rude, entitled, stupid, You always remember them, don't you? Though, but you don't remember the 90% that were absolutely lovely and really enhanced your experience. And I met some fabulous people, met amazing people from all over the globe who I was fortunate enough to be able to bring a little bit of joy to and be part of a really amazing experience. Because what we forget and what we always forget, and something that we used to drill into the teams and stuff, is that for us is we live this every single day. We go to Kinderdijk, which is the UNESCO World Heritage Site with windmills. We go there every other week or whatever it was, every 2 weeks, 3 weeks. For the guests have never been before. So they deserve to have that first experience that we had. So I tried to make sure that I always gave them that, and that I was always at the top of my game with it as much as I could be, as much as I could control, and never took it for granted that I was working on board. But I always forget the really nice ones and just remember the arseholes.
Yeah, no, they stand out more, don't they? Some of them, like the really nice people, they still stick in my mind. But you're right, you kind of you do get a little bit numb to certain ports if you're doing it in a routine, like 2 weeks itinerary in the Canaries with the same ports again and again and again. But then some people, it's their first ever cruise. I think I was one of my first ever cruises. Obviously, the first ones, I was just like, I'm on a cruise. Like, this is all new to me. And I was the life and soul of the party. I was so enthusiastic for everything. And I met this kid at one of my first cruises. I can't remember his name, but it was early on in my first contract. And he was with his parents. He was at everything I hosted. He just wanted to be wherever I was because he loved my energy. What can I say? And then he came back a few months later and he had like this big, eyed moment when he saw me up the gangway. He was like, "Sam, you're here still." And I was like, "Yeah, I decided to extend my contract." And then he got out of his bag a printed photograph in a frame of me and him that he kept on his bedside table. And I was like, bit much.
Jesus. Yeah.
But you make impressions from people. And obviously my first cruise, I was going to make a couple impressions. And then a few weeks later, I put up an emotional brick wall.
Absolutely.
I learned to, guard my emotions, as they say. Yeah. What is it you do now, Ben?
So now I work for I still do the same kind of thing. I work for an entertainment company called Tag Entertainment. They basically are a one-stop shop for all your entertainment needs. Think Pill, but think a lot. I was about to say a lot better. I don't mean it like that, but no, not corporate. Just a really nice company with great people providing brilliant quality products to our clients. Really, that's what I do. So I'm a client delivery manager.
Are they hiring?
We're always on the lookout for talent. So if you know anybody, please apply.
Oh, okay. Yeah. No, I if I had time in my schedule besides everything I'm doing, you know what I was thinking earlier? I'd love to get into doing like a pantomime season. I've never done it, and out of nowhere on the way back home, I just started singing. I'm reviewing the situation. I know that's not pantomime technically, but I've always wanted to play Fagin or, weirdly, Dr. Frank Furter from Rocky Horror, which is a very contrasting role. But I think it's one of those roles where it's so out there, only a true heterosexual could play it.
Possibly. I'll take your word for it, yeah?
Again, that's my story and I'm sticking to it. Was there any pantomime in your days, or not so much? No. We
do a pantomime now. One of the sites that I look after, but it's very good actually. But no.
With Tag, you're employing people. You say for all your entertainment needs. That's again a very broad spectrum, Ben.
Absolutely.
Balloon modeling, you got it covered.
We could get you a balloon modeler if you wanted one. Yeah,
I'm just testing, just seeing what you can and can't do. Snake charming.
Just booked a snake charmer, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, and an ankle grinder.
Call them,
yeah.
Angle grinders.
Angle grinders, not ankle grinders. Yeah, angle grinders. That's it. You know what I mean? Something to do with grinding.
Ankle grinding. What's that? Something with rickets?
Possibly. It's possible.
Did you have any nicknames during your time at sea?
Yeah, twat, wanker. There he goes. Who's that knobhead? All the usual stuff that we get. No, Clifty. That was all it was.
Clifty. Yeah. So I would like to know a bit more about Tag, but you can promote them if you need to.
Yeah, well, I mean, they're just it's like we're a massive company. We look after multiple clients worldwide, and what I'd love to promote is that if you do see an opportunity to come and work for Tag, you really should do. That's for everybody who's watching, listening, whatever you're doing. If you want to progress in the next stage of your career within entertainment, whether you're a singer, dancer, whether you're a host, whether you're looking for a management position, an office position, whether you're in production, delivery, whatever it is, if you do see opportunities, do apply, because it will be one of the best things you do, because it's a really super company to work for.
Support the arts.
Support the arts, absolutely, definitely.
Quickly, have you ever had a show from hell?
Have I ever had a show from hell? I mean, I've died on my arse. Yeah, of course. Everybody has. And if they say they haven't, they're completely lying.
Yeah, you're not a true entertainer unless you've died on your ass a couple of times.
No, absolutely. I've watched a couple of shows from hell as well that my teams have been delivering. I thought, what the massive car crash.
And you're like,
moments.
Why did I employ this? Possibly.
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes I have. Yeah. I remember one time very quickly, it's not even that funny, but I'm not going to name the person it was, had that, the in-betweeners scene where he poos himself in the exam room.
Oh, yeah.
And he's like, Phil, like that. And this person was hosting bingo and it went, totally wrong. Like, and you can't mess up bingo because you're playing with money. And he literally had the microphone. And although he didn't poo his pants, he looked at me, I was watching him and he was like, Ben. And honestly, it was that in-betweeners moment. And then it was a case like, it's okay, come on, you'll be fine. And then somebody else came in and took over and finished it off. But yeah.
He didn't poo his pants, but what, he sharted?
No, he didn't poo his pants. He just had some kind of presenter breakdown, where you don't know where you are, what's going on. Didn't have the skill set to get himself out of it. Didn't have the charm or the wit or the banter to be able to get it. Just had this, I don't know what I'm doing. I need to get off this stage as quickly as I can.
Yeah, I never had that problem.
No,
I'm joking.
That, isn't it?
I did get pulled off or booed off once, actually, and it just came back to me. I think I made a joke. It was just back when Bruce Forsyth was still alive, and I said, "Ladies and gentlemen, I regret to inform you. Hope you had a nice day today. But I've just been informed that sadly Bruce Forsyth is no longer with us and has passed away. Can anybody tell me how old he was?" And they would shout out different ages, and I'll be like, "No, higher, no, lower."
Jesus Christ, you can't go making a joke about a national treasure like that.
This was when he was still alive, and I got a proper booing.
Yeah.
But I think
Josh Valentine Nelson's classic one, that his granddad arrived in the UK with nothing but £20 in his pocket, but it was £20 of good shit.
Yeah, he was always playing that card, I think.
Yeah.
Well, I think we've got just about literally a minute left, less than a minute. So that's perfect time. Ben, I want to thank you so much for coming on.
You're welcome, buddy.
It's been lovely talking to you. Learned a lot today. And again, thanks for coming on. I really enjoyed it.
Oh, thanks for having me, mate. Cheers. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Enjoy the weather while it lasts.
I will. And you. You stay safe.
Thanks, man. Take care. See you later.
Take care. Cheers, bud. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. So there you have it. That wraps it up for this episode of DeckTales. I hope you enjoyed it. If you've been entertained by the tales of laughter, camaraderie and the occasional stormy sea, then don't forget to subscribe, rate and leave a review. Your feedback helps us to navigate the podcasting waters and continue bringing you these fascinating stories. Before I sign off, if you'd like to share your own stories for future episodes, then I'd love to hear from you. Simply get in touch over the socials, because after all, the best stories often come from our listeners. As we navigate through the waters of life, remember to enjoy the journey as much as the destination, as well as those you choose to share the adventure with. I've been your captain, Sammy Catlin. Until next time, fair winds, smooth sailing, and may your adventures be as unforgettable as those shared here on DeckTales. Bon voyage.